Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. And on this week's video I've got an important question. After running these Michelin CrossClimate2 tyres for 5,000 miles, are they any good? So when I put these tyres on my car, these were in essence the tyre that practically everybody on every Facebook or Tesla forum seemed to be suggesting is best for my use. I do quite a lot of miles. I live in rural and northern Scotland where the weather can be quite interesting, so having better grip than just summer tyres was definitely a priority. I did think about having a set of wheels to go onto winter tyres and having specialist winter tyres, but these all-round, all-season tyres seem to be the thing that everyone was suggesting would actually do the job brilliantly. And you know what? I think they had a point. So I'm sat here at the supercharger and there are several Teslas parked up here outside basically the Tesla shop, including mine. So let's have a look at some tyres. These are Michelin Pilot Sport 3, something like that, and these are summer tyres, and you can see the amount of rubber there is here and the gaps. You know, there's a lot of contact area which is nice and grippy in the dry. And then you have a look at the profile on these bad boys and they are a completely different shape and profile, and these rubber blocks are absolutely huge and good enough for me to be able to get my fingers into without any issues. So the tread on these tires, the pattern, is completely different to a summer tire, and that does make a big difference in terms of how they perform, or at least you might think that. But as I said, I really haven't had any issues at all. I think the only thing that I would draw out really is that there is this pronounced lip. As you can see, there isn't as much sidewall here sticking out to be able to cover the rim of the tyre. Now these are 19s. Hang on, is this car up here? No, that's on 20s, 21s, but there isn't a lip there. And maybe is there a bit of it? Nah, not really a lip there. So it's only really on the CrossClimate2s where there is a little bit of a pronounced lip. Now, all that means is that I'm being a bit of a fool in running around with these wheels bare without any covers on them. I think the reality is I got a little bored of the Gemini covers, and frankly, I've got an alternative in the post. More on that on a future video. I'm just going to drop inside the car for a minute to record this section. And I know I had a little bit of feedback when I asked the question, what kind of videos do you like? Where people said, can we have less where I'm sat inside the car and talking? So for those people, my apologies. But I think on this one, there are things to talk about when it comes to these tyres. So let's talk about the kind of things that you consider when you are putting tyres on a car. Well, the first one is cost, and they weren't cheap. So despite shopping around for deals and having quite a few different deals offered to me and then disappearing as I tried to click onto them, the tyres weren't cheap. However, they were not as expensive as some of the other options. Obviously, these are a premium brand and a premium tyre. It's a big and expensive and quite heavy car, so I don't see a problem with spending good money on tyres. My point with tyres is, are they going to last? And on 5,000 miles, they're not showing any signs of uneven wear or of going to not last for a long time as all of the reviews suggested that they would do. So from a cost perspective, yes, they were pricey, but they weren't extortionate, and as long as they last, that's all that matters. So let's talk about it from a road holding perspective. The first thing to note is these are not summer tyres, and I can tell that they're not summer tyres. There is quite simply a different grip pattern on these tyres versus the OEM Hankook Summers that the car came with. Now, I don't think it makes a dramatic difference to road holding, but I can feel a difference. So on these tyres, if I'm pushing it, I can tell that I'm pushing it. And on the summer tyres, basically the grip was there, the grip was there, the grip was there, and then it wasn't. And there was a couple of incidents where you could get the car basically to go a wee bit squirrely. What I really like about these tyres is that you absolutely can do some hooliganism in the car, and you can push the thing, and you can go tipping into bends, and you can do lift off regen to be able to tuck the nose in. It does all of those things, and it does it really well. But where it's getting towards the edges of adhesion, you can feel it. So before it just stops gripping, and the handcuffs towards the end especially were there, before it stops gripping, it tells you that it's going to stop gripping. You, in essence, get measured understeer. Okay, you can feel that the car isn't steering quite as much as you'd like it to do. And obviously you can just correct that. I would much rather have that, where you can feel it and you know where it's coming and what it's going to do, and you can adapt to it. That is much better than a car where the grip is there and then suddenly it isn't. And I've had tyres that are like that before. Pirelli, I'm looking at you guys, your ditch finder tyres are awful. So measured grip, I think, on a tyre is something that's definitely positive. What else should we talk about? Well, let's talk about noise. There are people who say that you have to have Tesla specific tyres on your car, and that just isn't true. You don't. As long as they're the right size and the right load and the right speed, you can put any tyre that you want onto the car. The main difference, I think, between this tyre and the OEM Hankook tyres is there is a lack of acoustic foam stuck inside the tyre. Now, I'm not a particular fan of acoustic foam, and I have had it on previous cars, but it does make the tyres harder to work on. Yes, you can repair the tyre that's got foam in, but some tyre places won't or don't like it because, frankly, it's extra faff. So without the acoustic foam in these Michelin CrossClimate2 tyres, are they particularly noisy or outrageously so versus what I had before? And the answer is simply no. They are noisier. There's definitely noise on these tyres that there wasn't on the previous one. It's kind of a gentle whooshing noise, okay? It's almost like, have you ever had a car where one of your wheel bearings is worn and you get that woo 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 noise? It's not anything like as pronounced as that, but you can tell that something is rotating as you're driving along. And that, in essence, is the noise that I get off these tyres. You can hear the road surface, especially when you've got variable road surface and you've got smooth and then you go on to rougher tarmac, you can hear that, and bumps and things like that. It transmits the noise a little bit more, but actually that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's not noise as in, my God, I can't hear myself think. It is just a little bit more communication of the tarmac back into my ears so that I've got a bit more of a clue of what is going on. So I don't have a problem with the additional noise, and it's only a smidge. It really is. But the main thing that I've noticed on these tyres is what they're like when it's wet. And I'm recording this in late July 2024, and oh boy, has it been wet. We have had a properly piddly summer and late spring and winter. The weather in the UK this year hasn't been consistently good. What it has been is consistently wet. And on wet roads, these tyres are imperious. And I don't just mean wet roads as in a little bit of damp. I'm talking about the kind of downpour where Noah needs to start building his ark, and a guy on a street in Peterhead gets his fishing chair out and sits outside his house fishing in what used to be his street. That kind of level of downpour. This car on these tyres is sensational in those conditions. Genuinely, these CrossClimate2 tyres, when there is standing water or a significant amount of water that has been falling, basically it's like driving along in the dry. They are that good when it comes to the wet. It's the summer. They have been on since, well, late winter, early spring. So I can't talk about what it's like in the snow, but what I can tell you is that my expectations are pretty high. So by the time I get to a 10,000 mile review, I suspect that these tyres are going to be pretty impressive. And then the other thing we should talk about on this is efficiency. So I reset my second trip when I installed these tyres. As you can see, CrossClimate2, I have done just over now 5,000 miles, and we have burned 1,631 kilowatt hours, which is 286 watt hours per mile. Now that is actually less than the previous tyres we're on the lifetime. Not by a lot, you're talking, I think, 5 or 6 watt hours per mile, but nothing more than that. But what that means is that these tyres are no less efficient than the OEM Hankook summer tyres were, at least in my experience. These are grippy, they give you measured amounts of feedback in terms of how much grip you've got. They're imperious in the wet, their road holding in the dry is almost as good as the summer tyre, and in some cases I'd say better so, because again, I know exactly where the grip is starting to go rather than it just being an on-off switch. And from an efficiency perspective, they're pretty good. So to wrap it up then, honestly, these tyres are absolutely brilliant. I don't regret putting them on 1 second, and I honestly can't wait until the winter to be able to see exactly what they're like in the snow. I've got a feeling that the snow socks, which I do have, and if you haven't seen my video of me prattling around with those, go and watch it now, but I don't think I'm going to need those anymore, because I get the impression that these things are basically just going to be able to go through almost anything. And the other advantage that I think I'm going to have when it does come to the winter stuff is that because this is the all-wheel drive, that does mean that the traction distributes itself across both axles. I managed to get the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid on summer tyres through a blizzard which had the A68 over Sutra bar completely blocked by absolutely every other vehicle than me and a diesel transit van. And the transit van basically was just bouncing it and keeping going. And I'm just literally crawling up this thing and it's still going. I think this would do similar wonders, especially on these all-season tyres. So let me know in the comments, have you got these tyres fitted? Did you reject them? Have you got full winters? Do you still think it's not wet or snowy enough where you live to need to bother with such things? Let me know in the comments and let's have a conversation about it. That's it for this week's video. Thanks so much for watching. Please like the video, that helps the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.